We are here today to celebrate Black History Month and to recognize the contributions of 10 amazing Greenvillians. We are honored to have such an incredible group of civil rights warriors with us today. The board debated several ways to recognize our barrier breakers. We considered a plaque, a framed citation, flowers, but nothing seemed quite right. So we've decided to honor this group in a way we think they would most appreciate, by supporting the next generation of Black leaders. The board is donating $500 in their honor to the Merrill F. Code Scholarship, which is part of the United Way's African American Leadership Program. So I'm going to turn the program over to Roxanne Cordner and let her take it away.
In 1976, President Gerald Ford officially recognized February 1st as the first day of Black History Month, asking the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. My self-guided journey through Black history began when I was 12 years old and I read Alex Haley's classic, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. Reading that book made me forever skeptical of mainstream media depictions of Black figures in America. Books like that made me think about a culture and a set of circumstances far different from my own as a white farm girl from rural Western Michigan. The education's ongoing. More recently, I read The 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah-Jones and Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. Some of those stories and Caste made me understand more clearly how intergenerational wealth can be destroyed to the detriment of future generations. My education in Greenville's Black history was significantly advanced more recently by researching and putting this program together. In my opinion, Greenville's civil rights struggle has been glossed over and in some cases minimized to exclude the personal stories and struggles behind the movement in our community. The goal of today's program was to honor and recognize the barrier breakers among us who helped advance the cause of civil rights for themselves and all who followed them. I wish there were time in this gathering to point out all the achievements of our honorees. Their resumes had to be shortened in the interest of time. Please know there are many untold stories and anecdotes that we wish we had time to share today. I also regret there won't be time to engage our honorees with a question and answer session. I do encourage you to take the time to meet them in person when the meeting concludes. I think you'll find it well worth your time. And with that, I will proceed to focus on these distinguished individuals who join us today. The Reverend Grady Butler graduated from Sterling High School, then earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Tuskegee University in 1959. He participated in civil rights demonstrations in Montgomery and Tuskegee, Alabama, Atlanta, Georgia, and in October 1960, he was arrested while trying to eat at Rich's, an Atlanta restaurant, and spent several days in the Fulton County Jail as a cellmate of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Reverend Butler earned a Bachelor of Divinity, a Master's of Divinity, and a doctorate in ministry, all from the Interdenominational Theological Center, ITC, Morehouse School of Religion in Atlanta. Reverend Butler served as assistant pastor in a number of Atlanta churches and then returned to ITC as assistant director and instructor of field education and also taught religion and philosophy at Morehouse College. He was the dean of students at Morehouse College from 1981 to 1983 and served as associate pastor of Salem Baptist Church in Atlanta. In 1986, Reverend Butler became the pastor of Mount Olive Baptist Church in Tuskegee, where he served until 1993. Then he returned to his hometown and served on the faculty of Greenville Technical College as an adjunct professor at Furman University and as a substitute teacher in the Greenville school system. He also served as a trustee on the Greenville County School Board. Reverend Butler is a man of faith and through his actions, a barrier breaker. Merle Code's career is a series of firsts spanning from the football field to the courtroom. Growing up in Greenville County, he graduated from Blue Ridge High School in Greer, then played defensive back for North Carolina A&T State University. He graduated with a degree in mathematics, but decided that football was more to his liking. He signed on with Canadian Football League's Montreal Alouettes and played 4 seasons, winning the Grey Cup, the Canadian answer to the Super Bowl, in its first year. He continued to play pro ball in the World Football League and finished his career with 2 more years in Canada. With football behind him, Code returned to school at the University of South Carolina's School of Law. earning his Juris Doctor degree in 1979. He was an Earl Warren legal scholar and became the first African American to serve as president of the Student Bar Association at USC. Code was the first African American to serve as a municipal court judge in Greenville in 1981 and the first African American to serve as chairman of the Greenville Chamber of Commerce in 1999, where he spearheaded what went on to become the Minority Business Accelerator. In 1996, he was presented with the state's highest civilian recognition, the Order of the Palmetto. Other awards followed, including the Complete Lawyer Award by the South Carolina Bar Association, induction into the North Carolina A&T University Hall of Fame, and the South Carolina Black Hall of Fame. In 2025, Code was honored with the Riley Wilkins One South Carolina Civic Leadership Award for his life of public service and advocacy on behalf of minority communities. That award recognizes leaders who influence equitable opportunities for all South Carolinians to thrive. Code was cited for the courage his many first took, and as well as his willingness to speak out on behalf of underrepresented minority interests. Peggy Dillard Toone was born and raised in Greenville County, the youngest of 13 children. After graduating from Wade Hampton High School, Dillard Toone attended the Pratt Institute of Technology, earning a bachelor's degree in fine arts with an emphasis on advertising, fashion merchandising, and marketing. Dillard Toone inherited her passion for designing and making clothes from her mother, Mary Poole Dillard. Peggy worked as a fashion illustrator, a sewing instructor, a display designer before sharing her talents with the world's top designers as a model. Dillard Toone was the second Black model to grace the cover of Vogue magazine by age 17, her first of three covers. Her modeling career spans 4 decades, where she appeared on the covers of Mademoiselle, Cosmopolitan, Ebony, and Essence, to name a few. A favorite of Vogue for being comfortable in her own body and her own hair, thus, the natural beauty became her claim to fame. Peggy modeled on the runway in editorials, magazine spreads, TV commercials, film commercials, voiceovers, and advertisements for top designers and photographers throughout the world. She and her husband, Lloyd Toone, an artist, co founded the iconic Turning Head Salon in Harlem, New York City, which was instrumental in creating the first natural black hair care curriculum for licensing in New York State. Dillard Tunes also co founded Blue Leaf International Arts, a nonprofit foundation with a mission to engage in the arts as advocates, artists, collectors, educators, and benefactors. Over the past 40 years, they become synonymous with Harlem film production as creative directors, production designers, and art curators. They've worked with CBS, ABC, NBC, ETV, Netflix, HBO, PBS, and major film productions and independent filmmakers from around the world. Peggy and her husband Lloyd's latest project is a documentary about another barrier breaker, Diane Carroll, the actress who starred in the first weekly TV series featuring an African American woman in the lead role. I can't wait to see what's next for Peggy Dillard Toone, a true barrier breaker. Glenda Morrison Fair was elected in 2008 to represent District 23 on the Greenville County Schools Board of Trustees, succeeding another barrier breaker, Reverend Grady Butler. Glenda's a native Greenvillian who graduated in the second to last class from Sterling High School. She graduated from Hampton University and, while studying at Hampton, worked as the head of student affairs. And it was that experience that planted the seed for activism and grassroots advocacy. After graduation, she and her husband, Carrie H.B. Fair, lived in the Boston area for 5 years, then moved to and lived in Kansas City for the next 31 years. Glenda worked in the IT field and eventually earned her teaching certificate from Park University and taught high school in Kansas City. She returned to her hometown of Greenville in 2003. Reverend Butler convinced her to run for the Board of Trustees, saying you have to do three things: be willing to work with people, to listen, and to be available. To that end, as a school board trustee, she's worked tirelessly to engage with the 19 neighborhood associations in her district. During the dark days of COVID, she worked with parents and teachers to navigate how best to educate our kids and keep them safe at the same time. Glenda's worked with others to make sure that lunches were delivered to homes in place of the regular school lunch. In addition, she's delivered meals to seniors in our local food deserts. Glenda's a longtime faithful member of Democratic Women, and we are proud to include her among our Barrier Breaker honorees. Pearlie Harris was born in Saluda, North Carolina. growing up in a home without running water or heat, the daughter of a Baptist minister. She was a scholarship student at Barber Scotia College, an all girls school. She then earned a master's degree from Furman. She began teaching at in Beaufort, South Carolina, before moving to Greenville in 1962, where she taught in segregated schools. She became a barrier breaker at Crestone Elementary, serving as the sole Black teacher until formal integration in 1970. Her dedication and strength of spirit made her a beloved, impactful educator until her retirement in 1994. After retirement, Purley became a dedicated volunteer for Bon Secours St. Francis Health System, eventually becoming the first Black woman board chair. The hospital system also named their breast health center in her honor. Purley is a devoted Catholic, serving as a Eucharistic minister, and has received a medal from Pope Francis for her service. You can see Purley depicted on an 8-story mural on the Canvas building on Buncombe Street. That mural, created by Australian visual artist Guido van Helten, features Purley with some current students at A.J. Wittenberg Elementary School. The mural at the entrance to Greenville is a fitting tribute to a woman who dedicated her entire life to educating children and enriching the lives of others. The Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr., founder and president of the Rainbow Push Coalition, is one of America's foremost civil rights, religious, and political figures. Over the past 40 years, he's played a pivotal role in virtually every movement for empowerment, peace, civil rights, gender equality, and economic and social justice. On August 9th, 2000, President Bill Clinton awarded Reverend Jackson the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. Born in 1941 in Greenville, Jesse Jackson graduated from Sterling High School and then enrolled at the University of Illinois on a football scholarship. His activism began as a college freshman in 1960 when he and 7 other high school students, now known as the Greenville Eight, entered the then segregated Greenville Downtown Library. The Greenville Eight were promptly arrested and charged with disorderly conduct. The lawsuit that followed ultimately resulted in Greenville's libraries being integrated. He later transferred to North Carolina A&T State University and graduated in 1964. He then began his theological studies at Chicago Theological Seminary, but deferred his studies when he began working full-time in the civil rights movement with Dr. King. He was ordained on June 30th, 1968 by Reverend Clay Evans and received his Master's of Divinity degree from Chicago Theological Seminary in 2000. For his work in human and civil rights and nonviolent social change, Reverend Jackson's received more than 40 honorate doctorates, has lectured at major colleges and universities, including Howard, Yale, Princeton, Morehouse, Harvard, Columbia, and Stanford. In October 1997, Reverend Jackson was appointed by President Bill Clinton and Secretary of State Madeleine Albright as Special Envoy of the President and Secretary of State for the Promotion of Democracy in Africa. In this official position, Reverend Jackson traveled to several countries on the African continent and met with national leaders, including then President Nelson Mandela of South Africa. Reverend Jackson is a civil rights icon and a barrier breaker. Davita Mathis, attorney and civil rights activist, has deep roots in Greenville. A graduate of J.L. Mann High School, she earned her BA at Oberlin College, completed her law degree at the University of South Carolina, then in 1989 became the first African American female assistant solicitor in Greenville's 13th Solicitor's Office, where she served for 6 years. She's had her own law practice since that time. Miss Mathis' self-professed passion is civil rights. This passion led her to join and then to serve as chair of Greenville's Rainbow Push Coalition. Her civil rights activities have taken her to stages across the country as an advocate on issues such as economic opportunities, voting rights, and criminal justice. Locally, Miss Mathis was an architect of the successful movement to recognize the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in Greenville County. Miss Mathis is active in her community in other valuable ways as well. She and her sister Janice host their own weekly radio show to discuss legal issues, politics, current events. A talented musician, actor, and dancer, DeVita's appeared on the stage of the Warehouse Theater, Greenville Little Theater, and at churches and other venues across the country. Democratic Women is proud to include DeVita among our barrier breaker honorees. Elaine Means was born in Montgomery, North Carolina. Her family moved to Greenville and she graduated from Sterling High School. In 1961, she was a student at North Carolina Central University in Durham. She was home for the summer and was taking a Bible study class at Springfield Baptist Church. The pastor encouraged her to get involved in efforts to integrate the public library. Means became part of the Greenville Eight, a group of students organized by Reverend Jesse Jackson to integrate the library. Their sit in at the Greenville Library only lasted 40 minutes, but its effect was felt for years as integration and civil rights spread across the South. In 1963, Means graduated from college and participated in the March on Washington, led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Her first job was working at the Justice Department's Immigration and Naturalization Enforcement Service in Washington, D.C. She was one of the first Black women to work for this agency. In 1971, she moved to New York City to work in social services. After retirement, Elaine moved back to Greenville and worked as a consultant to the Urban League, volunteered with the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Commission, and co-founded a home renovation company. She ran as a Republican candidate for Greenville County Water Commissioner and lost. Elaine served 7 years on the city's Civil Service Commission, becoming its chair before her retirement. Elaine likes the irony of being arrested by police officers in high school and then serving on the commission that hires and fires police officers. Elaine Means has a lifetime of activism and firsts. We're pleased to include her among our barrier breaker honorees. Sarah Reese, an accomplished, celebrated opera singer and civil rights powerhouse, is a well-known and beloved native of Pelzer, South Carolina. In 1967, Reese was one of the first two Black women, along with Lillian Brock Fleming, to attend Furman. In addition to breaking new racial ground at Furman, Reese, along with other Black Furman students, led civil rights marches down Main Street in Greenville. The first was in response to the Orangeburg Massacre of 1968. Another was in response to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. later that year. Reese went on to have a distinguished career as an opera singer at a time when Black opera singers faced significant barriers. Her successful career took her around the world for performances at prestigious venues with renowned orchestras and conductors. Reese was named principal artist with the New York Metropolitan Opera and artist in residence at the Opera Company of Boston. She was the featured soloist on a 1993 Grammy Award-winning recording with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and she performed with the BBC Symphony Orchestra at Royal Albert Hall, as well as the American Composers Orchestra at Carnegie Hall in New York, with a large number of opera companies throughout Europe. He eventually returned to Greenville and began teaching music in the public schools, starting at Pendleton High School, where she also chaired the Fine Arts Department. In 2013, she was named a Yale Distinguished Music Educator, and in 2014, Furman recognized her with an honorary doctorate in humanities. Reese's leadership with civil rights, empowerment, and access in our communities and beyond have contributed to the betterment of all the spaces in which she's worked, lived, and served. Leola Robinson Simpson was born in Belton, South Carolina, but the arc of her life and those she's influenced runs straight through Greenville. She graduated with honors from Sterling High School, received her undergraduate degree from York College of the City University of New York, and a master's from Furman. In 1960, at age 15, Leola Clement joined other Black youth to sit in at the Crest Variety Store lunch counter in downtown Greenville, part of a larger protest of racial discrimination sweeping the country. She and other protesters were arrested and put in youth detention. Because she was a minor, a judge threatened jail for her parents if she continued. She waited a month until her 16th birthday, when her parents could no longer be held responsible, and resumed protests. The Crest protest resulted in a legal action, Peterson versus City of Greenville, that progressed through the legal system to the U.S. Supreme Court. The court ruled that the city's laws mandating segregated lunch counters were unconstitutional, and the case became precedent in similar cases around the country. A year later, Robinson Simpson led a group of students from Greenville's Black high schools in a march on the state capitol. Robinson Simpson served in the South Carolina House of Representatives, representing District 25 from 2012 to 2022. She was named South Carolina Legislator of the Year in 2017. Leola's also served as a school board trustee and director of tutoring and student support at Greenville Technical College. She's also the author of the 2007 history book, Black America, Greenville County. She's the co-founder of the Center for Educational Equity, a 20-year-old nonprofit center on Greenville's west side that has engaged hundreds of students with after-school tutoring and activities. Leola began breaking barriers at a young age and continues her advocacy today. Ladies and gentlemen, these are your barrier breaker honorees.
Representative Jackson is just beginning his second term in the House as the representative from Illinois' 1st Congressional District. You might have caught him on MS Now the other day when he gave a stirring invocation with a direct message to Donald Trump, who is standing right behind him at the National Prayer Breakfast. Find it online. It is worth watching if you haven't already seen it. When I read up on the congressman's background, I realized that I couldn't begin to scratch the surface of his diverse life and experience. So I'm going to pull out a few quick things. Obviously, we know he is the son of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. So he grew up in an environment steeped in human rights activism. As a 17-year-old, he traveled the world at his father's side on several foreign negotiation trips, meeting Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez. He didn't jump right into politics. He got a master's degree in business and was an investment banker, a business owner, and a professor. As spokesman for the Rainbow Push Coalition, he has championed juvenile justice rights, supported those who have been wrongly convicted, and been a passionate defender of public education. He was elected to Congress in 2022 and re-elected this past November. He sits on the Foreign Affairs and Agriculture committees. When I first reached out to Representative Jackson's team, I suggested that with his background, he is ideally suited to draw a through line from the civil rights era his father was such an integral part of to today, when Black history is being whitewashed and rewritten, when decades of work built on the foundations of the 50s and 60s are being rolled back. And diversity is no longer a goal, but a firing offense. Representative Jackson now has not only a front row seat, but a significant role to play in preserving our democracy and protecting our Constitution. Congressman, we are thrilled to have you with us today.
Well, let me say very special thank you, Laura, and hello to everyone there. I really wish that I could be there. Please honor me with the opportunity to come and see you face to face. These Zooms and high tech is all right, but I really would like to see you. We have much work to do together in South Carolina. I bring you greetings on behalf of my father, Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'd like to thank Frank Holloman, the chair. Thank Stacy Mars and Dorothy Dow, Catherine Harvey, Chandra Dilliard, and once again, you, Laura, for the great work that you're doing. And to this outstanding group of recipients that are being honored today. I was just going through it, and I see Reverend Grady Butler. Hey, Grady, good to see you, Reverend. And I hope he's in attendance today. My father extends his heartfelt love and appreciation, and to Merle Code and Peggy Dillard, who have done such outstanding work. We see Glenda Fair and Pearl Harris, and Davita Mathis, and the sister of Janice Mathis that I've had to work so long with, Elaine Means and Sarah Reese and Leola Simpson. All of these good troublemakers that have made Greenville come into the light of the new generation, of the new millennium. I'd like to say thank you. I have been a part of the civil rights movement my entire life, if you will, and I would encourage all of us, let's bring our children out to these events. There's only one way to do it. Children right now have too many options and they're being attacked. So the best way to do this is to drag them up. They're looking at their phones, they're playing on PlayStation. We have to bring our children, we have to get them involved. This is something that's happening with Turning Point USA. When Mr. Charlie Kirk died, and we began to see the infrastructure behind Turning Point, it had 450 employees, financed to a tune of over $90 million a year for this man to go argue with children across college campuses. We have to engage our children. As we talk about Black History Month, and I want my remarks to be focused on that, Dr. Karji Woodson, of course, is the legendary creator of it, and I'm proud to say that he crystallized his thesis in Illinois' first congressional district. So we're going to own it as the birthplace of his movement. But what was the idea? A man that came from West Virginia that had to delay his education. He was too big to sit behind a desk in the elementary schools of West Virginia. Went to an integrated college, Berea College in Berea, Kentucky, the first integrated college in the United States of America. I mean, founded by a white minister that saw no prejudice, and he built that institution, and it's still functioning today. It's a magnificent school, and it's an at-work school. So the tuition is reduced because all the students have some work responsibilities. And after you become successful, as their graduates have become, their children don't qualify to go to the school. They have kept true to their charter on bringing in children that have been disadvantaged. Then he came on to the University of Chicago, where someone had told him, "You have no history that's even worth remembering." He took that as a challenge to start the documentation, the heavy lifting of showing all the things that we've had to overcome in American history, going on to become the second African American to graduate from Harvard. But here's what I want to put in there. His goal was he created, I've read two of his books, The Miseducation of the Negro, and then his first book was The Education of the Negro. The Education of the Negro didn't sell as well. He knew the psychology of some people in our community, so he had to say it in the negative, the miseducation, and then the book started flying off of the shelf. We have to teach these things that are appropriate through our cultural ways. It's so important. As we look at what's happening now with the Trump administration, you have to attack the libraries, you have to attack the books, you have to attack the cultural institutions, the museums, so our children have no memory. So on this 100th year anniversary of African American History Month, and I want to thank President Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford ended up making it the entire month. It had been the Negro History Week for some time, and then Gerald Ford. So for that, he's noted, should be noted in African American History Month. Dr. Carji Woodson, his goal was to show Black and whites making progress together. How do we make progress together? Why was it set in November and February? Because this is the only date they could approximate for Frederick Douglass's birthday, along with Abraham Lincoln. These two men, Black and white, made progress together. There are some legal theories that say that the words of the Emancipation Proclamation indeed was written by Frederick Douglass, because that's his oratorical style and not that of Abraham Lincoln. But it was showing Black and whites making progress together. And in those two books, you'll also see that he had envisioned a day where you would not need to have a Black history because American history would have been made whole. We've not gotten to that point. That's why we have to remember and continue to make America history whole. That's the goal. And we have to share that and teach that with our white students as well. Mr. Trump and his administration has tried to use this as a divisive tool to say that we're separate and to say that we are trying to impose something. No, if you don't have African Americans in history, then you have lies, distortion, and propaganda. This makes American history whole. We want to tell the whole story and nothing but the whole truth. This past week, and I've seen some mention that people have asked to look at this, the prayer that I gave on behalf of the Democratic Party to the President of the United States. One friend of mine asked me, "Jonathan, how did they select you to give that prayer?" And I said, that was real easy. I was going to the prayer breakfasts where very few Democrats go. It may be 3 of us out of about 30 people that regularly attended. I was asked to chair, and I said, oh, this could be a high honor. And I first asked my colleague, well, what's my obligations as the chair? He says, all you have to do is get Democrats to come every other week and you alternate back and forth. I said, oh, I can do that. I'm a pretty likable guy, I would like to think. And I'm telling you, I'm about 2 out of 72 requests that I've made for Democrats to participate in that prayer breakfast. It is hard to call these colleagues in the prayer breakfast people of our same faith when you see what they vote against expanding health care. They vote against food assistance. They vote against housing vouchers. They vote against keeping our history alive. So many Democrats just turn off, and for that I can understand. But I do believe in the power of prayer, so I continue to show up. And then this opportunity presented itself. And in those words, those remarks, I said, I'll be presenting a man that is the most powerful man in the entire world. He has $1 trillion military defense budget. He has $130 billion internal military force of the ICE agent. He just captured and kidnapped a sitting president of a country in Venezuela. He's bombed Nigeria and Iran, and he can show such lethal force. Now he's going after people that he has called his enemies, and he's been very vindictive and vicious. And so I just asked the good Lord to build a hedge of protection around me, to send me, and I knew what I had to do. And I never sought to humiliate him, but I did sought to take the opportunity to demonstrate my faith and to speak truth. To speak truth to the most powerful man on earth. And I don't believe that anyone is beyond prayer. He's the same man that cut the SNAP program. If the good Lord touches his heart as he can be the same man to restore the funding to SNAP. The same man that cut the Medicaid and Medicare, he's the same man that can restore it. And so peace is possible. And so I asked the good Lord and I said, this is a quote, Lord, show yourself to him in a new and a profound way. And then 24 hours later, there are pictures posted of President Trump, President Obama, and First Lady Michelle as like a monkey. So I don't know that prayer hit directly, but I know the good Lord, he can hit a straight lick with a crooked stick, because lo and behold, your great Senator Tim Scott, we got him to finally call something racist. So give Senator Tim Scott a loving round of applause. I couldn't believe it. Sometimes the prayers can ricochet and they can bounce. I couldn't believe it. So maybe Tim got part of the prayer. But on a serious note, we have to keep the culture alive. And I love what you're doing, the bridge building. You're making this intergenerational. We have to bring our children along. And I can't help but think about when I read over the bios of the award recipients. I'm born in 1966. And to think that my father in his lifetime with the Greenville 8 and those of you, the champions, could not go to a public library. We were arrested going to a public library. That the offense was not to educate Black children. When I see that people have now gone on to graduate from Furman University, that was something my father wanted to do, but Furman was not available to him in his lifetime. So we've seen much progress. And then we also see the stubbornness of South Carolina all the way up into claiming some, if you will, notable first country to succeed from the Union, the largest slave port for African Americans, the first shot fired, and then you also have some of the last. This is the last place. This was the first state also that denied African Americans the right to an education, made that in 1740 into law. And of course, you've got all the great champions for the blows of African American freedom, and Denmark Vesey and Gabriel Prosser and others. But then you got a stubborn part where you hold up a Strom Thurmond who boasts about having the filibuster and to being an arch segregationist. But you also have the last county in the United States of America to honor the Reverend Martin Luther King in Greenville County. So we have work to do. But here's the exciting news that brings us together I'm very happy about. Greenville and the state of South Carolina will now be first in the nation for the Democratic primary. Claim it, own it. They may say it's Maine or whatever, but the most consequential state that's going to beat the drums for what the new Democratic Party must become is South Carolina. And for that, I thank God for that. I was thinking about South Carolina in this speech today as I was watching the halftime show. I don't speak Spanish, and the words I do know are very rudimentary. And I was looking at the young man, Bad Bunny. And so I've been reading up on Mr. Bad Bunny and getting the lyrics that he said in that um, demonstration, that performance last night. And there were a few highlights that I want to share with you. One, in his personal funds, he spent $2 million bringing in those sugar canes and plants from Puerto Rico. He wanted to give his people an economic engine, and he also wanted to have something authentically grown in the country to further share his culture. He showed the bodegas and the small vendors. He showed the baby holding the Grammy. That was a real couple that got married on the stage that night. He wanted to show the love and the vivacious character of the nation. He also wanted people to know that Puerto Rico is older than has been with the United States as a property, if you will, longer than Alaska, longer than Hawaii, and yet his people don't have the right to vote. There's a tax scam that goes on there where rich people can go down there and have a business and they don't have to pay federal taxes. And so the poor people, the farmers are being run off the land and having to move to New York and Orlando and other places. I say that to share with you. We have the same issues. In my spirit of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, it's time for coalition building. He was making an outreach. He was speaking out. He was doing it in Spanish. He was doing it in his culture. He's like, you all have colonized us and had us for over 100 years. It's time you know what the other shoe feels like, that you have to learn something about us. That brings me back to South Carolina. You're going to have the opportunity to introduce yourself to the nation in a profound way that we've never had before. Now the America needs to understand our experiences in South Carolina, the challenges that we have to go forward with. And I am just so excited about that. We have to lead with a massive voter registration drive. Clearly, if they can have a Tim Scott to be a United States Senator to come from South Carolina, we can have a Democratic senator from South Carolina. Clearly, we can do this again. South Carolina created public education as the model that we know today. So we have so much work to do. I am so excited about it. And with your help and God's blessing, we're going to make this happen. So claim South Carolina first in the nation for the Democratic primary. And I'm willing to come down there, lead and participate and share in voter registration drives. We have to let our children know you have a great and vibrant economy. We want this economy to be fair, where our children, our communities can be a part of it. I'll leave you with one last thing before we go into Q&A. At the very beginning of the speech, I see many people for my prayer for the president have cut it off. And I said, Imago Dei in the Latin, Verbum Dei in the Latin. Then I opened up the prayer, Our gracious God. And so once they write it out, if they ever catch up with it, they will understand that Dei in Latin is spelled DEI. I was simply saying, in the image of God, in the word of God, I put it at the top of the speech. I have started the DEI caucus along with my colleague, Congressman Cleo Fields. It's a value that I hold dear to. I think we have to embrace it. We have to reclaim it. We have to reinstitute it. These are the guardrails to stop against racism. They expand inclusivity and opportunity. And if we don't reverse that, we're going to be in a world of trouble. After all the cuts that happened with Doge and Mr. Elon Musk, net, what happened? The debt is higher, the deficit is higher, and more Black women were fired. And they did that all under the auspices, the guise of not having, going against DEI. And women, they were the huge beneficiaries of much of this civil rights legislation. I mentioned Miss Nancy Grace in my speech in Charleston just the other week, because she's still the first. She was the first woman to have graduated from the Citadel. It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't until 2011 that women got a restroom off of the rotunda, off of the main floor where we vote here in Washington, D.C. I mean, Now we're talking about rolling back the rights on women's and reproductive health. And my daughter has fewer rights in her lifetime going forward than I've had been afforded in my lifetime. There's a Planned Parenthood facility in the southwest part of my district. Women are now coming there from 11 states. Women's reproductive issues and health issues have been compromised and been challenged. We're a better nation than that. So I want to say thank you. I look forward to working with you. South Carolina is number one. South Carolina is first in the nation for the Democratic primary. South Carolina's messaging, like Bad Bunny, we need to invite them into our culture and let them see what we have to go through on these laws that have disenfranchised African American men, these laws that are now taking away blacks and women in business opportunities, these laws that are now restricting the teaching of African American History Month, these laws that are now restricting DEI. Let's be a champion. South Carolina, you lead the way, and I'm honored to work with you. Laura, you got to unmute me. Laura, did I get booed or did I get applauded? I don't know what you're doing, Laura.
Thank you, Congressman. Stay with us for a little Q&A. I did forget to tell everybody, although those of you who come all the time should know, write your questions on the index cards and then wave them in the air and somebody will come and collect it and bring it up to me. But I'd like to start off with one question while we're waiting to get some others. I really want to know, when you turned to face the president after your invocation and you shook his hand, he said something to you, and I'd love to know what it was.
He said, great job.
Is it great job?
He said, great job. I did not seek to humiliate him. And really, if you look at the substance of that speech, you can put any leader's name in that speech. We all go, you can put your name in that speech. That's a prayer I would have for anybody in leadership. He is the most powerful person. And I also wanted to touch those, I want to comfort the disturbed and disturb those that are too comfortable. That people mourning the deaths of people in Minneapolis, and the administration has been very cold-hearted, and that the good Lord still can redeem him, even him. I mean, maybe, hopefully, prayerfully.
Well, I certainly hope so. Do we have some questions? Pick us off with something. You are. Okay, we'd like to know how your dad is doing.
I pray. Thank you so much. He's comfortable. He's not auditory anymore. He gets a few words out. He has to squeeze the hand, but thank you so much. God is able, so praying for a breakthrough, but he's in good spirits. I saw him last night, and so I told him I was coming to speak to Greenville, and I told him I couldn't get down there. He told me, get down there as quick as you can. So
We will be happy to have you at any point that you want to come. So, and I'm sure that everybody in this room is praying for your dad too.
no, thank you so much.
Questions? Come on, guys. We got a United States Congressman here. We got a question.
I'm your other congressman. South Carolina can have more than one. Come on.
We would need more than one, believe me.
I know. Come on. So I am your other.
You mentioned getting our children involved in an effort to combat what is occurring in our nation today. Do you have another specific strategy that you could suggest for us to implement?
Well, not at this time, because the midterms are coming and we have to overwhelm the polls. The trends are going in our favor. But if you look at the amount of people that are unregistered in the state of South Carolina, that's the margin of victory. We have to reclaim voting as a part of our culture, that you can't come to the picnic or to the barbecue, that if you don't simply participate, I'm not in the leadership as in the legal fights. I think they spend too much time on like the legal fights. They need to be more with the activists and like stir the troops up. People do have the power in this country. So there's a lot of legal fights that are going on. They're extremely cautious, costly, too costly. I believe in the people power. So I like to spend more of my time in organizing people to get to the polls where they can have their representatives in there. So I don't have another plan at this time outside the voter registration.
Thank you, Congressman, for your inputs here. There's something I just don't understand from what I'm hearing on the radio or the TV regarding the negotiations with the shutdown and ICE and that whole issue. And I'm hoping maybe you can give me some insight into it. And I'm particularly concerned about this mask wearing of ICE officials. I just don't understand it. I don't understand how law enforcement can wear a mask and that we can't see who this person is. I've heard that there's a negotiation that maybe it'll be okay sometimes. If you can explain to me why sometimes works, I would appreciate it, but I just don't understand it, and I find it very difficult to accept.
Yeah, well, what I can tell you is that it's wrong. Simply, it's wrong. And I share that I don't like people wearing masks in law enforcement or wearing hoods in law enforcement. That this is not a part of the Gestapo. And I tell people be careful with making that analogy. This is the reason you need to study Africans in American history, thus celebrate, learn, commemorate African American History Month. This goes back to the slave patrols. This is policing people's bodies, asking them your skin color, asking them your language. Where are you supposed to be? You're not supposed to be on this side of town. This is trying to regulate behavior of people's transportation and their mobility. It's simply wrong. And so they passed that big ugly bill by one vote, and that made the Department of Homeland Security's ICE budget the 10th largest military budget in the entire world. That's not the Department of Defense. That's not state, county, and local police. That's not the CIA. That's not the FBI, just for ICE. And there's a $75 million slush fund in there to build detention facilities. This is what President Trump signed on the 4th of July around his birthday of 2025. So it's wrong, and we've got to get the majority back in the House.
Things happened last week, in addition to things that have happened in previous months over elections. And I wonder if you are at all worried about the free and fair nature of our elections in November.
I am absolutely worried about it. There was an insurrection that took place in January 6th of 2021. That was a test case, and those persons still should be jailed. Officers Sicknick and others, they died, and a congressional bill was passed to have a plaque to honor the officers in Capitol Hill. Speaker Johnson has refused to put the marker up to even acknowledge those officers. Many of them were white Caucasians. We need to honor them for their heroism, just like Heather Heyer out of Charlottesville. She was in the right place at the right time, and so was Alex Pretty, and so was Renee Good. These are extensions of the abolitionist movement. We have to make sure we're controlling our narrative. And so, yeah, I'm very much concerned about it. Two big Supreme Court cases are on the docket right now. One is Louisiana versus Kayla, and that simply has to deal with, can you have majority minority districts? If you have a district that's, if you can make a district in South Carolina that's 60% African Americans, and there are, I don't know, X amount of, let's say 50 state Senate seats, and African Americans are 30% of the population of South Carolina. can you draw state and House and Senate seats that maximize the voice of those communities? That's on the Supreme Court docket right now. They heard the case in the spring of 2025, and they heard it in the fall of 2020, in the fall of 2025, and now we're waiting on whether or not they will try to dismantle that. If that goes against the spirit of the law of the 14th Amendment, equal protection, and also of the Civil Rights Act, you could see out of the 60 African Americans in the Congress, 15 to 20 have their maps redrawn, and they would be taken out immediately. That's a big case. Another is on birthright citizenship. The United States Supreme Court just took up the case on birthright citizenship. That was supposed to be resolved fully, finally, after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. So they're playing in the mid 1800s on these laws. It's like one of the most racist administrations that we've ever seen. All the things that had been put in place for racial justice. Now he's telling his Department of Justice, white men have been discriminated against. Use the civil rights laws to sue corporations and municipalities on their behalf because they've been discriminated against. They've been the most privileged group. So yes, I'm very much concerned when Steve Bannon says he wants to put the federal troops around polling places, and when state laws are saying you can't pass out bottled water to people in line. I still don't know why on some sides of town, people go in and out quickly, and other sides of town, there are lines wrapped down the block and around the corner. I mean, there's something fundamentally wrong. But all this started happening when they started dismantling the Voting Rights Act with Section 2 and Section 5 on the pre-clearance. The Biden administration should have fought harder for it. We should have expanded it when we had Democrats in office. They were much too complacent and now we have this in the balance. And Section 2 will have to deal with the whether or not we're going to continue to strengthen or totally dismantle the Voting Rights Act. So yes, I'm very much concerned. Even most recent statement of Pam Bondi talking about we can reduce some of the ICE agents in Minneapolis if you give us your voting rolls. Then for the National Security Advisor, Tulsi Gabbard, to go into Atlanta to Fulton County. I mean, like, hold on, what are you saying? Absolutely, you should be concerned. And think about exactly what he says. He says Atlanta had voter fraud. Philadelphia has voter fraud. Pittsburgh, Detroit, Milwaukee. He's not saying the state of Georgia, the state of Pennsylvania, the state of Michigan, the state of Wisconsin. He's only calling out the Black communities. He's the same person that told the Secretary of State in Atlanta, find me 11,780 votes. So yes, we should be concerned about voting. And the only thing I know that we can do is the people have to demonstrate their power. We have to overwhelm the polls. If it's close, they're going to steal.
You think that the Supreme Court will stand up for the Constitution on the issue of nationalizing elections? If this should reach, or even on appeal of the taking those ballots out from the 2020 race out of Fulton County. I mean, these things, you think the Supreme Court, we can count on the Supreme Court to stand for the Constitution?
No, we can't count on the Supreme Court for anything.
So hoping for a different answer.
I thought this was going to be a good news session. No, they've been absolutely. And so even when I said it in the Latin of Imago Dei and Verbum Dei, that was really a shout out to the Catholic community. The Pope has been quite remarkable on speaking out on social justice and other things. I wanted, in my own way, to let them know I hear you and I'm an ally. So we've got to get the church community involved. And there was another line that I said that in the prayer was, people are not lazy, people are simply tired. People are not okay. I put people not okay in there. That was my shout out to Jelly Roll. he was supposed to come and he had to pull out at the last minute. So he's a person that has a tremendous heart, a great Christian spirit, and we've got to get our entertainers and artists and everyone involved to come out on the right side of history.
One last question. Do you, in your personal relationships with members of Congress, can you determine if any of them, I hear all the time that, when they talk to me in private, they feel differently than they talk in public. Do you think any of them will be growing a spine anytime in the near future and be coming out on our side on some of these issues?
On the cellular level, I'm beginning to see a little bit of DNA that may be and may show some parts. So spring may come early. I think and the hope that I saw was actually this past Friday after that horrific post went up depicting the former president and first lady as animals, that 7 senators came out and condemned it. 5 5 Republican congresspersons condemned it. Even your Senator Tim Scott, he finally saw something racist. So it took him a while. So that begins to show me, I don't know, it may be short-lived, but at least he finally saw something. It's pretty bad if you live in a paper mill town and you never know that it smells anymore. It's like some things you just got to call out. Racism stinks, and people have to say it and call it out as soon as they first see it. Don't get used to it.
That's right. Congressman, thank you so much for your time.
And I will see you soon. Love you. Bye-bye. We'll do it.